At this time, I'd like to call to order the Montebello City Council and Public Finance Authority joint regular meeting to order. It is Wednesday, November 16th. It is 5:06. Will the city clerk and board secretary please call roll?
Councilmember Torres,
Here.
Councilmember Melendez,
Here.
Councilmember Peralta,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez, Mayor Cobos Cawthorn.
And I am here. Would Mr. City Attorney please read the statement of oral communications?
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, at this time, if there's anyone who wishes to address the City Council on closed session items only, you would have either had to submit a card to the city clerk or provided a written comment. Do we have any cards? No. And we have no written comments. So it's appropriate at this time, Madam Mayor, to recess into closed session for items 1 and 2. And there's a third item that we'd ask the council add to the agenda, in as much as it came up after the posting of the agenda, and there's an immediate need to provide direction to the city manager and the city attorney's office on this item. This is pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, subdivision D4, and that's a conference with the legal counsel, anticipated litigation. We need a motion to that effect.
Can I have a motion to add a third item?
I'll make the motion.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. City Clerk, please call the roll vote.
Councilmember Torres,
Here.
Councilmember Melendez,
Was that an aye?
Aye.
that was an aye. Councilmember Peralta,
Aye.
Mayor Cobos Cawthorn.
And I vote aye. That carries unanimously 4-0. Okay, we will recess into closed session. We'll be back shortly. We are back from closed session. It is 6:05. Mr. City Attorney, if you can please brief us on each item.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and members of the City Council. The record should reflect that the City Council recessed for closed session and convened for closed session, with all 5 members being present. The items that were listed, including the add-on item, were discussed in closed session, and the following is my report. On item number 1, a threat to public services or facilities, the City Council received a briefing on that item. There was no action taken, and there's nothing further to report. Under conference with the real property negotiators, the City Council received a briefing and an update on the project that was listed on the agenda, but there was no action taken. The add-on item, which we'll list as 2.5, that item was a conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, subdivision D4, and that related to the further resolution of a claim and settlement agreement with Garfield Financial Corporation. The City Council provided authority and direction to the City Attorney's Office and the City Manager's Office. Consistent with those terms expressed in closed session, we will execute the necessary release from Garfield Financial to effectuate those terms. And that was unanimous by the City Council. That concludes my report from closed session. It's appropriate to continue with the open portion of the meeting at this time.
Okay, and for our invocation will be our Treasurer, Ralph Gutierrez.
Good evening, Montebello. We are thankful for this day that you have given us, for its blessings, its opportunities, its challenges. May we appreciate and use each day that comes to us. We pray for strength and guidance for each day as it comes, for each day's duties, for each day's problems. May we be challenged to give our best always, and may we be assured of your presence with us. Amen.
And our Pledge of Allegiance, our Director of Human Resources, Nicholas Rauzo.
Please face the flag, place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, are there any corrections to the agenda?
We have none, Mayor.
Okay. And I will go down for our Citizen of the Month. Time out, don't. What? We can have nice things. Okay. Mr. Peralta, would you join me, please? So everyone, if you don't know who this is, picture this in front of him. Usually he has a camera in front of him, and you don't see his face. This is Mr. Ernie Peralta. He usually is the one taking all of our photos for the Montebello Reporter. So a little bit about, well, my colleagues want to join. A little bit about Ernie. He started here in the 3rd grade, and he went to St. Benedict's Catholic School and graduated from Don Bosco Tech. He received his bachelor's in electrical engineering at Cal State University, Los Angeles, and went on to get his master's degree from Cal State Fullerton. Ernie has experienced some of his happiest and most important lifelong memories as a longtime resident here in Montebello. He met his wife in sign language class. Montebello was offering an evening learning classes at the local high school. And by the way, Miss Betty Peralta, right here in front, was also a Citizen of the Month. They have their first home here in Montebello with their 3 children, Jamie, Alex, and Liz, all born in Beverly Hospital. Even though engineering was his lifelong career, photography is where his true passion is. When Betty joined Montebello's For Optimist Club, that's where his passion, Betty, he voluntold Ernie. And he also joined by Parks and Recreation staff, Chamber of Commerce, Montebello Reporter, and of course, us here at City Hall. Our city staff, we have come to rely on his excellent photography skills. You have an absolute amazing eye on capturing the moment, just everything from children, everything that we have here, all of our events. So thank you so much, because you tell the story and we get to see it through your eyes. And it's a way for us to help us raise funds for the Beverly Hospital. It's a way of seeing history. Montebello, like, you're documenting all of Montebello's history. So thank you for that. And I can't see a better recipient than you, because I know you don't like a lot of publicity and recognition. So on behalf of my colleagues and myself, Mr. Ernest Peralta, you are the Citizen of the Month. So thank you. And then I was gonna say, you turn over the top, because I don't think there's ever a picture where you're both in it. Okay, so if you can please join us, because there's never one, and yes, together.
Betty, can we use your camera?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to get there.
And then here's this. Yeah, Sir Optimus you're both Sir Optimus sisters, right? I was like, Sir Optimus, I don't know, sisters? What do you call Sir Optimus? Here's this guy, and then I'll hide this. Oh, we're carrying. And Ernie, a few words. Yeah, okay, just Ernie? Okay, oh, just Ernie. Okay, few words, just Ernie.
I'm not used to being on this side of the lens. And I'm just very grateful. I'm at a loss for words because I'm a photographer. I'm not a writer. So, but I really appreciate everybody just noticing the things that I try to contribute, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
And
Thank
we
you,
have a
Madam
few more
Thank you,
gifts.
Council. Thank you, everybody else.
Thank you. There, I'll pass this over. And we have some little gifts for you. So this.
Can we ask Betty to join so we can get a photo of them together as well?
So this one, don't get it confused with Betty's. So that one's yours. Hold it down. This is from Beverly.
Oh, so cute.
Betty, we're gonna have to pass the camera again. We want you back in here. This one's. Betty, you gotta go in here again. It's next to your hubby. Thank you. I think the Chris is Oh, before, if I can kick my colleagues out, and then myself out, and then just one of the two.
In case we use that photo for
So. You, Betty? I'll kick everybody out. Betty, you two alone? Yeah, we're good. I'm kicked out.
Or put it back over here.
And then just you guys.
Yeah.
So let's carry something. Oh, it's right there behind you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Betty. Ernie, thank you. I just feel that, and I love you more. No, more. Okay. Thank you so much to the Peralta family. So this month, the City of Montebello wants to bring awareness to men's health issues throughout the month of November and specifically raise public awareness about mental health, mental well-being, prostate, testicular cancer in men. A growing number of males, around 10.8 million globally, are facing life with prostate cancer diagnosis. Globally, testicular cancer is the most common cancer among young men. Guys, across the world, 1 man dies by suicide every minute, every day, with males accounting for 69% of all suicides. We ask our residents to please check with the men in your life, fathers, sons, uncles, brothers, etc., and have them check in with them currently with their mental and physical needs, their well-being. Encourage them to get checked up, visit a doctor, and check on their well-being. To please learn more on men's health awareness, visit Movember.com. Okay, guys, I'm checking in on you. My colleagues, are you doing good? Colleagues, are you doing good? Sir? Are you doing good? Directors, chiefs? Okay, we've got thumbs up. All right, all the men in the audience, we looking good? Okay, all right, did my duty. Officers? Okay, we got some thumbs up. All right, on to, the city also acknowledges November as National Alzheimer's Awareness Month. So if in case you didn't remember, I just asked if you guys are okay. According to the World Health Organization, more than 55 million, oh man, Michael, I broke it again. More than 55 million people worldwide live with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. This debilitating disease kills more people than breast cancer, prostate cancer combined, even as it robs them of their lifelong memories. Alzheimer's is a progressive disease that impacts memory, thinking, and behavior. It is most common cause of dementia that worsens over time, and at this time still has no cure. Experts agree, in a vast majority of cases, Alzheimer's likely develops as a result of complex factors like age, genetics, environment, lifestyle, coexisting medical conditions. Therefore, awareness, compassion, and early care for dealing with and treating dementia are important reminders for this month, especially among our elders. To learn more about the 10 warning signs of dementia, please get help and visit Alzheimer's Association website by visiting alz.org. At this time, we'll proceed with our public comments. Mr. City Attorney, would you please read the statement of oral communication? He doesn't have Alzheimer's.
Public comments. At this time, we do have some public comments, both written. Do we have any cards for public comment tonight?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And this time, why don't we do the audience public comments first? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Those wishing to address the city council at this time should either fill out a card or should turn in their speaker cards or comments. Earlier today, we do have written comments and also speaker cards. So, Mr. City Clerk, we can start with the speaker cards.
Yes. So the first person is going to be Levon Brotero, followed by Levon will be Ana Jurado.
It looks like I spoke too soon about maybe getting better next door. I think they just went to the Bahamas and counted their money. Now they're back making fentanyl again. You know, they pump wastewater back through the sewer system, down the driveway and down into the street. It makes the weeds grow like hell. And I think now they're pumping it across their lawn. And for about 3 years, I thought they were buying weed killer and throwing it on my lawn. Now I think it's a waste product off this fentanyl. They weren't buying weed killer at all, but they're throwing it on my lawn. Anyway, let me tell you what I think of these drug dealers, fentanyl. 3 years before the COVID started, I wrote on the inside of each leg, if found dead, neighbor on South did it, drugs. It's been on there ever since, only I changed the drugs to fentanyl. I like the sound of that better. And if the DEA hasn't sent 25 undercover agents out here to LA recently, they're not doing their damn job either. You start killing high school kids, you better stop it. And I got a friend of mine, there's a car that shows up across the street, I know it's a drug deal, from Colorado. Well, a friend of mine's nephew got busted in Colorado, second offense, and he thought he was going to get 20 years. The Fed said no and gave him 30 years, and they killed his drug connection right off the bat. They didn't even hesitate to kill his drug connection. So you better not be connected, or you better keep your mouth shut. Anyway, I get up here and I forget what I'm going to say. Well, you know, one thing I'm very suspicious of is when I had my cataracts done, it took me about 3 years to catch on to this, but I was suspicious of the eyeglasses right off the bat. Well, it wasn't that. I think there's a camera down in each eye, corner of each eye. I even bounced it off my eye doctor. I know a Chinese guy recommended me at Walmart to go to that doctor, and when in operation, I was conscious enough to know that there was a Chinaman in the room with me. Anyway, I bounced that off my eye doctor, and I said, I don't believe a damn word you said. Most eye doctors would have said, you better go to someplace else. But he didn't. He said, just make him another appointment. I don't think he wants me to go to someplace else, but I will. And I'm going to start, you know, the way they have messed up my race car deal when I order parts, I go, how can you do that? You can't walk into a company that's worth quite a few millions of dollars and just say, hey, screw this guy over. I finally come to the conclusion the drug cartel must own these companies. That's about $500 million worth in just Southern California. I can also think of a connection in Colorado that might be the same deal. So, who knows?
Thank you for the
Down the road,
comments.
I'm just going to go to the DEA and put a stop to this.
Next speaker is Ana Jurado.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. Okay. I'd like to take this opportunity currently to thank you, Madam Mayor, council members Salvador Melendez, Angie Jimenez, and Renee Bobadilla, our city manager, in your participation in celebrating and thanking our veterans on that day. I'd like to thank David Sanowski for organizing the celebration in honoring all our veterans, past and present. Thank you. Also, participating in the celebration of our veterans were City Clerk Christopher Jimenez, City Treasurer Ralph Gutierrez, Police Chief Paul Espinosa, Fire Chief Fernando Pelayas. And thank you to the veterans who shared their personal services they gave to the United States of America. Although saddened and disappointed, not all council members were present, nor did they acknowledge by email or social media thanking our veterans on that day. If you did, I stand corrected. Just remember, our veterans, while serving, never got 3-day weekends unless on leave. I shared my feelings of disappointment with my brother, a United States Marine Corps veteran. His response was, and I quote, "As a veteran, I am aware that we fight for the right for citizens to express themselves or not in any matter they, without being persecuted or in today's culture, to be canceled. However, I was raised to be grateful to those who assisted me in troubled times, protect me, and help me celebrate during good times. When it comes to Veterans Day, I would say this is a time to be truly grateful to those men and women who sacrificed so much for our country. As Americans, we should be grateful to military personnel all year long for the safety and freedom they afford us. Because without the umbrella of protection they unselfishly provide, we would not exist. So, it rankles me when I observe the disservice of our current and active council member, David Torres and Scarlett Peralta, and civilians who miss the opportunity to say thank you and honor those who have sacrificed so much. It is asking so little for so much that has been given to us all that many take for granted. And it shouldn't be that way. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, that concludes speaker cards. Would you like me to move on to the written comments?
Please.
First written comment is from Marian Ochoa. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Upon reviewing candidate 460s, I saw David Torres had 2 donations of $5,000 each from his parents for a total of $10,000. Was that from the $353,000 missing HUD money? The city should run a property profile on the 3-house former city administrator purchased on the same street, Park Avenue. He transferred ownership to his children, so you, Mr. Torres, never purchased a home in Montebello. Were those 3 homes purchased with HUD affordable housing grant money? Would that not be a huge conflict of interest? Where is your so-called transparency on that money, Mr. Torres? I was not on your list to get that ridiculous booklet you wrote filled with lies, such as attachment C, 10/27/2021 council meeting when you were removed from pro temp position. You wrote it was because you posted the audit, but moron, it was not released till October 2022, not 2021. Last year, ops, you lied. FYI, you were fired from your paralegal job in the LA City Attorney's Office for sexual harassment and stalking, so stop trying to make these pages of lies seem like a legal document. As for Zoe McKinney, staff attorney with the ACLU, doesn't she have ties to you, Mr. Torres? Her letter to the city of Montebello is currently under investigation. Attached G 6/22/2021 and 5/31/2022 is bogus. It's ridiculous. If you had your way, the city could not buy a pencil without your approval. Attachment H 8/10/2022, with all the attacks and medical issues you have caused over 17 employees, they should have all total medical services covered. Dealing with your hostile demands, they deserve a paid vacation away from you. David Torres, you are toxic. In closing, once the lawsuits are made public and the taxpayers realize what you have done and the hundreds of thousands of our money you are going to cost the residents, I guarantee you will never be reelected in 2 years. When all you had to do was say you were sorry, but you're too arrogant to take responsibility for your actions. Rafael Gutierrez will win your district and soon our city will be rid of you. Too bad the mayor trusted you. She should have left you the loser when you ran the first time without her support. A loser. Mariano Ochoa, Montebello resident.
And then, we do have 2 other written comments, and we're not going to read the entire letters into the record. This relates to item number 9, And on item number 9, we have a correspondence from an attorney, Mitchell M. Tsai, TSAI, and his letter is comments to the second reading and adoption of the ordinance approving the development agreements on the billboards. And then it's self-explanatory, but he is, in essence, asking the council to not approve the approval of these second reading and adoption. In response to that, there was also a correspondence from, well, I should note that the correspondence from actually came from Jason A. Cohen, C-O-H-E-N, from the law offices of Mitchell M. Tsai. There was also correspondence from Lathan and Watkins. The attorney is Benjamin J. Hanelin, H-A-N-E-L-I-N, and he provides a one-page correspondence identifying certain issues that he feels are relevant to support the approval of the development agreements before the City Council. So those are comments that will be in the record for item number 9. That's on the consent agenda. With that, are there written comments? Oh, we have another comment card?
No more, sorry, no more written comments.
That's what?
We received one more speaker card just now.
Just
Is
now.
it general or is it on an item? Is it on a specific agenda item or is it?
Next speaker is Elizabeth Arenas.
Please state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes.
Yes, good evening. My name is Elizabeth Arenas. I'm a resident since 1987. I've been here before, and this is going to reiterate a problem that I identified a while back. Let me see. On November 9th, we lost water power pressure where I live, and I immediately contacted San Gabriel Water Company that services over 200 homes in this area. I asked the agent if they were actually servicing the water system at the time. They said no one was working in our area. And they told me, we will go out there tomorrow and check your water pressure. And I said, wait a minute. Just to let you know, the water supports our fire hydrants in our area. It's not going to work. And they said, well, just send somebody out tomorrow. And a few hours later, immediately I called City Hall over and over again. Nobody answered the phone. I was supposed to leave a message. It was full. I called, let me see, who else I called? I called the Montebello Fire Department, 4 stations, over and over. Nobody answered. I couldn't even leave a message. I finally called the Board of Supervisors because, and I was told there's no jurisdiction. The reason I did this because I have a background in fire inspection. I'm actually a certified fire inspector, and I know those fire hydrants will not work. You could get a water hose, it will not work. It turned out the San Gabriel Water Service knocked on my door 1.5 hours later, and they told me the whole water equipment was down. And the only reason we got a little water in our pipe is because it was in the pipe. Once that's depleted, we will have no water. I'm like, okay, so you're telling me this. Are you able to contact the residents to let them know don't use the water? No, there's no way. It'll only be word of mouth. I'm like, oh my God, okay. So, and this was not a new problem. I came here 6 years ago, and I was assured that there will be some kind of no failure system in place. There's nothing there. The existing the water tower behind our home supplies the water to the community. When you lose power, there's a generator, but guess what? Somebody has to physically go out there and turn it on. That is not acceptable according to the California Fire Code. You're supposed to have an automatic transfer switch. It's not there. And the reason I'm bringing this up because If there is a fire, somebody dies, the city of Montebello will be liable because this problem was identified over 6 years ago. And I will testify for that person that would lose their home or lose a loved one. This is not acceptable. I don't understand. I did have a chance to look at your agenda, and you have a lot of issues. I know you have a lot of great things you're going to conquer, but this is our homes, this is our family, this is the community, and all we need is an automatic transfer switch, some way for the water department to know that there's a problem with the water pressure. Also, I understand everybody went through well, okay, nobody's monitoring the water pressure here, but nobody's watching people wasting water either. I reported it, we'll look at it, it's still happening. I don't know I'll be back again because this is not acceptable. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. City Manager, are there any community items of interest?
There we go. Madam Mayor, that concludes public comment, correct? Okay. And then we go to staff communications on items of community interest.
Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, members of the public, once again want to invite the community and city council out to another exciting recreation and community services event taking place at Montebello City Hall on Saturday, December 3rd. It's our annual tree lighting and winter wonderland, with the tree lighting ceremony taking place at 7 p.m. The event includes a lot of activities for kids, including snow slides, pictures with Santa, arts and crafts, a vendor fair, chances to purchase food, several holiday-themed live performances, including a special performance by the Wise Guys, and then right after the tree lighting, Mariachi Los Colibres. So we invite the community out to check out our city website, social media to get further detail, but Saturday, December 3rd from 3 to 9 is the annual tree lighting. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. City Manager, any corrections to the agenda?
No corrections, Mayor.
I'm sorry, Renee. Well, on the consent agenda on item number, I'm sorry, 26, there is one change to the proposed agreement number 4043, and there's a paragraph number 7 on that agreement that addresses website domains. That and the final version will be removed from the agreement. And other than that, that's the only change to the agenda. Yeah, moving on to the public hearing then. That item has been removed from tonight's agenda and has been canceled, so that will not need to be heard. Then we move on to regular business, items 7 and 8. So I'll start with item 7, which is the introduction and consideration of waiving first reading of ordinance amending number 2457 of chapter 2.14 of the Montebello Municipal Code to update the rules of order and procedure for the conduct of all city council and successor agency meetings, proceedings, and business. And I can provide a brief staff report.
Please.
Yes, the rules of ordinance, the rules of order and procedure for conduct of city council meetings was previously adopted by the city council. These rules have been adopted throughout the course of many years of the city. In October 27th of 2021, a new comprehensive ordinance was presented to the city council and was introduced and adopted. Since then, there have been changes to state law, specifically Senate Bill 1100, which addresses rules of decorum and the ability for the city council and the presiding officer, the mayor, to address anyone who disrupts the meeting in an improper behavior. Those provisions of SB 1100 are been incorporated into the new rules of order. Also, certain other changes that addressed the manner in which members of the public can address the city council, and a few other minor cleanup provisions of the city, of these rules. That actually completes my staff report. If there's any questions, I'm happy to address the questions from the council.
Okay, I'll go down the row. Councilmember Torres, any questions?
No questions. I will just make a couple general comments. I stay opposed to this ordinance for two main reasons as of today, and I'll just keep it simple. On the first point, I had a conversation with the ACLU this afternoon. They weren't afforded a chance to take a look at the updates to the ordinance. Being the fact that the ACLU was the one threatening litigation, I think it makes the most sense to make sure that they have a chance to review changes before we move forward with them. And second, there's still provisions in here in general that are concerning and that restrict people's abilities to speak, which I generally disagree with. And that will conclude my comments, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Melendez, questions or comments?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one comment. Again, this is an ordinance that we're, again, touching to comply with state law. Again, regarding with decorum procedures. And yeah, so I know we've had a lengthy discussion in the past, but again, I think this is a move for us to comply with state law and to, again, put the correct procedures in order. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Peralta, questions, comments?
Me? Oh, thank you. I just have general comments. I just continue to disapprove of this item. You know, I think there's been opportunities for council to get involved as far as providing additional feedback. Again, we received this item, and we're never given that opportunity to really kind of go through some of these items that I continue to disapprove of, in that it continues to limit the ways that our residents engage with us during council meetings, and therefore just continue to express those same concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez? No comments. Okay. Like my colleagues said, I'd like to also adhere to state law. So it is up at council level for a motion. Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the item.
Okay, can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Mr. City Clerk, can I have a roll vote, please?
Councilmember Torres?
Nay.
Councilmember Melendez?
Aye.
Councilmember Peralta?
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez?
Aye.
Mayor Cobos Cawthorn?
And I vote aye. That carries 3-2. We are adhering to state law. Thank you. Next item, please. Item 8.
Next item is item number 8, which is the fiscal year 2022-2023 first quarter budget report.
Mr. City Manager?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We're excited to give you our first quarter update. As you remember, back in 2019, 2020, we went from a one-time annual report of our budget to a quarterly report. So this is our first quarter report, and our Finance Director, Michael Solarza, will indulge the council on the latest financial numbers.
Excellent, thank you. Mayor, City Council, City Manager, thank you very much. Oh, I get to drive now, cool, okay. Get the PowerPoint presentation up here. So again, this is our first quarter budget update. Again, as part of transparency, and I'll just keep talking until the PowerPoint goes up. As part of transparency and good governance and best practices, obviously we want to report on where we've been and how those actuals influence year-end results. Oh, there we go. Yay. Okay. All right, here we go. Just roll with it. Gonna do a dance or something. So again, what we're looking at here for today is an overview of last fiscal year's unaudited results, and then discussing some projections, updated projections for this year. Our revenue and expenditure updates, some staffing updates, hotel operations update. I want to point out that is something that state auditor has requested we do on a quarterly basis, and so obviously adhering to that recommendation, that's what we're doing. And then time for review and questions. So this first quarter report, given at this point, actually can use 4 months of actuals, July through October. It's an opportunity to kind of recalibrate our projections and forecasts. The adopted budget in June used a lot of data from April and May. So, here we are, almost 6 months later, we can actually use some, not just updated projections, but look at actuals and seeing the trends that are building these first 4 months. And then also using our unaudited 21-22 results to kind of guide where we're going to be. And then looking forward, the next time I present an update, that'll kind of be the kickoff for our 23-24 budget. So as a reminder here, we institute a 5-year budget development cycle, and it's really just trying to get us through the various phases of updating our budget, updating our financials, and getting us on good, solid ground. I'd like to point this out because there are no shortcuts when it comes to trying to get Montebello to where we need to be fiscally and financially stable, and it takes a long time. So as of right now, we're in year 3 of this 5-year cycle, putting a lot more research and strategies towards not just building our budget, but monitoring it and improving our processes so that we can present better data to the city council more frequently and more accurate, quite frankly. What we're trying to do here is move from a kind of a myopic and reactive approach to our budget to something much more strategic and proactive and being a lot more nimble with our financials. And one of the things I have to say that I'm proud of, I've worked almost 3 years in the finance department here, is really updating our processes and improving our procedures so that we can get better financial results in front of the council, in front of the residents sooner rather than later. One of the things I'm really proud of is having unaudited 21-22 results much sooner than in years past. The last couple of quarters I presented, last year at this point in time, I didn't have good unaudited numbers I could really rely on. But with the improvement of internal processes in finance and with the help from my colleagues in my other departments, I can actually present some 6/30/22 unaudited results. We're working hard on presenting the ACFR, and we'll be finalizing that soon. But for now, for informing our first quarter results, it's nice to have 6/30/2022 actuals. And again, that internal, it's not the most exciting thing that we do internally in finance, but it actually does allow us improve ability to report on our financial status and actually increases transparency. That's something I'm obviously proud of and moving towards. So, updating the 22-23 update year-end forecast. Again, that kind of middle column there, unaudited actuals. As of right now, it looks like we're going to end fiscal year 21-22 with a $8.152 million surplus. And I do want to point out that with the state auditor's high-risk dashboard, one of the areas of concern that the state auditor has is with our general fund balance, and that is in the 10 metrics that the state uses on that dashboard, the greatest weight is put on general fund reserves. So that $8 million surplus should get us to about 22% of reserves, 22% of operating revenues. If this data was used in the dashboard today, we would not be in the top 10. So I just want to point that out, that we are moving in the right direction. And I want to point out also that there are no shortcuts to getting us to financial stability, to fiscal sustainability, but this is one heck of a good start. And That $8.1 million surplus will add to the general fund reserves, help us adhere more to our general fund reserve policies. And looking at where I'm projecting at this point, where we'll end this current fiscal year is about $840,000 to the good in the general fund. The adopted budget was just under a $700,000 surplus. So our revenue is trending higher. Yes, our expenses are trending higher, but our revenue, and I'll get through the details in a bit, our revenue is trending higher, and we have some new sources of revenue that are helping us out. So again, it's important to point out that where we're projected to end our last fiscal year is going to really do some positive things with our general fund reserves, and that's a big part of how we get measured by the state auditor. Some more detail on general fund revenue. I realize that green is a horrible color to use in public, so I apologize. Looks good on a computer screen. It just doesn't play well up here. Another thing I want to point out is our revenue trends are positive. Obviously, our sales tax keeps trending positive. Charges for services, property tax, those are all trending very positive. Again, one of the 10 metrics that the state auditor uses on our dashboard is revenue trends. And as our revenue trends continue to be positive, we can continue to score well. So we've made a lot of progress. We continue to make progress. It just, these things do take time, but we are headed in the right direction. And then just, a graphical representation of where general fund sources of revenue come from. The big two, sales tax, and that's all three sources, Bradley Burns, Measure H, and our Monterey Park Marketplace sharing agreement, property tax, and then next biggest source is charges for services and license and permits. So pretty standard for a city our size. Sales and property tax are always going to be the bigger shares of revenue. So the updated projections with our revenue in the general fund, sales tax continues to improve. We have some new sources of franchise tax revenue coming on board. That is one of the items for consideration tonight, is the digital billboards. That would be a new source of revenue. License and permits, as the economy improves, obviously local residents are doing more, but we've also benefited the last couple of years with Montebello Hills, the Metro Heights. Obviously, they have to pay various permits for all the building up there. So it's one-time revenue, and that, obviously once those homes are built and completed, we're not going to be getting that permit revenue. But at the end of the day, it's still revenue. It still helps our bottom line. So we've gotten some nice boosts the last couple of years in license and permits from Montebello Hills. Our investment income is up, and it's twofold. As the amount of cash we have on hand continues to increase, there's basically more cash to invest. Also, interest rates are rising. So, we maintain very, very strong liquidity, and we benefit from that ability to invest those funds and take advantage of higher interest rates. There are a couple of reductions. Property tax I've reduced down just because, again, looking back at where we ended last year, I was a little too optimistic when I was preparing the budget. Adjusted property tax down projections about $100,000. And then our fines and forfeitures, apparently our moving violations are coming in a little lower than usual. I'm not sure what the trends are there, but I'm just going to hope that people are driving more safely and our traffic enforcement doesn't have to issue as many tickets. But for the most part, our revenue is trending positively up. And then it's always, obviously, sales tax being the biggest source of revenue. It's good to focus on that. Bradley Burns sales tax 1%, projecting about $14.5 million. That's up about $170,000 from the budget. Monterey Park Marketplace up about $83,000 from the budget, and then our Measure H is up about $120,000. Projected about $9.5 million in Measure H, and from a ratio standpoint, Measure H is about 66% of our Bradley Burns. We have enough of a trend, enough years of data now that we can actually see that our Measure H is a good almost 2/3 of what we bring in Bradley Burns. So very, very strong. It's continues to do well. And again, part of being able to recalibrate for the first quarter is using results from last year and consulting with our HDL sales tax consultants on looking at trends going ahead. Economy does continue to improve post-pandemic, but obviously, we keep hearing discussions about a recession. So, I do keep my eye on some of those economic forecasts and where sales tax might go if there is a recession or other economic downturn. So that updated forecast only assumes a 1.3% growth rate. So again, very conservative, and that's in working with our consultants on the 1.3% growth rate. So on the flip side of the balance sheet, we got our expenditures. One of the things to point out is we adopted a $67.9 million expenditure budget in the general fund. Currently, our amended budget is about $69.4 million. There's a number of reasons why the budget has been increased. I'll go through that in the next slide. But even with that amended budget, we're still projecting it coming at about $69.1 million across all departments. And that's a pie chart kind of showing where our resources go. Obviously, public safety is very important to us and the public. Fire and police getting the bulk of our general fund resources. Again, not unusual for a full-service city like Montebello. Public works, again, that's non-capital. So that has nothing to do with our paving the way or other capital projects. That's literally day-to-day, park maintenance, building maintenance, and engineering and building services, things like that. So I want to talk about the amended budget. One of the things that happens is once we close the fiscal year, there'll be purchase orders and other work that hasn't been done, and we'll roll over those purchase orders. So of that increase from the adopted budget, about 1.3 million of it is from our general plan update purchase order with Rank Walla and Associates, professional services and engineering, our body-worn camera program that we're still working through that and purchasing cameras and doing the installation, and then a battalion chief command vehicle that was approved last year. So the majority of that increase to the budget was those areas right there. And then obviously since July, there have been council actions to increase the budget for various reasons. And then you'll see some other updates, other increases. Our citywide branding effort, obviously that's an expense, but a very positive expense in rebranding Montebello. We have an increase in retiree benefits. As we have more retirees, that increases, so trying to get that calibrated correctly. We do a lot of special events. We've definitely increased the staffing there, increased the number of events. On the flip side, we have to pay more part-time wages, so there has been an increase there. A lot of vacancies in our communications division. Police chief we've talked about that, so you'll see some overtime that's directly related to our police communications division. And then obviously sewer maintenance and repair. I mean, that's nothing new. We continue to have to do that. We have an aging system, so you'll see some increases to the general fund budget in those areas for those reasons. And then in front of you also is a request for a staffing update, adding 4 positions, 2 senior administrative assistant positions, a principal risk officer, and a risk management assistant. So those would be increases the table of organization and adding 2 new positions to the classification resolution. And it's always important, regardless of whether or not the state auditor recommends this as the best practice. Our 2 city-owned hotels, it's always important to point out their operations. The first quarter results, that's the far right-hand column. We're starting to trend now to where we were pre-pandemic, and that's very positive. In looking at some of the data that we get, our daily occupancy rate and other information from both hotels, and occupancy rates are increasing steadily, looking at starting to get close to, if not exceed, pre-pandemic. So you'll see the results as the first quarter for both Hilton Garden Inn and Home 2 Suites are very similar to that same period in 2019 before the pandemic decimated the leisure and hotel industry.
And Michael, just for clarity, the expenditure you show for first quarter 22-23 of 1,081,158 for Hilton and let's say 6 million for Home to Suites, that includes expenditures, which includes debt service.
Correct.
So net is 626,000 to the positive after we pay all our bills and pay debt service, which is the bond. Same thing with Home to Suites. We're generating about 3.3 million. We're spending about 1.6, which includes also the debt service for that.
Yes.
So we generate about $1.7 million per year on the Home to Suites deposit for the city. So just want to make sure that we're clear on that.
Yes, absolutely. No, great clarification. Yes, that is all operating expenses, including debt service. And again, still with a, if you look at that column right to the left there where we ended last year, a surplus in Hilton Garden Inn, a surplus in Home 2 Suites after paying for everything. And just some reminders, Hilton Garden Inn was closed for 6 months, but there's been a renovation. So, you know, some positive came out of that closure. Again, all debt service and operating expenses paid using their revenue. No general fund impact, no subsidy. Operating surplus last fiscal year. And again, looking at this quarter, kind of parroting where we were pre-pandemic for the Hilton Garden Inn. Hilton Garden Inn's vacancy rate is still a little higher than Home 2 Suites, but is definitely recovering from where we were, you know, even just a year and a half ago. And again, Home 2 Suites, again, very positive, operating surplus. Again, I could just reemphasize all operating expenses, including debt service, paid for with the revenue generated by each hotel. So at that point, again, I want to thank you for your attention, and at this point, open for questions. Thank you.
And Mayor, if I just may, I just want to make this comment. At the State of the City, we talked a little bit about our budget, and I just want to be clear that the City of Montebello since 2000, that's as far as I could go back. It's on our website if you want to look. It's in our finance department, financial reports. You look at our budgets, and the ACFRs are on there. If you go all the way back to 2000, you'll see that since 2000 to 2018, 19, and even 1920, the City of Montebello ran deficit budgets, anywhere as high as 13 million to as low as 5 million. But for all those consecutive years, the City of Montebello never had a balanced budget. 20 plus years without a balanced budget. We're talking $50+ million of taxpayers' dollars that went somewhere other than to services because we kept running deficit budgets. So this council has adopted 3 surplus budgets. And as you can see, you know, a lot of the general fund reserve was depleted over time. Some of it was used for emergencies, repairs and such. But adding 8 million to the reserve is great, and we foresee by sometime next year, you will see your general fund reserve will be over 25%, more close to 30%. So we're extremely proud of that, and we will continue to tighten the screws and make sure we provide the services that are necessary at a very effective cost. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go down the row. Councilmember Torres, questions, comments?
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Appreciate it. I think I'll take the opportunity just very quickly because this seems to be a refrain that we hear over and over again. And talking about history, speaking about only half of the truth and not really addressing everything that happened. For whatever reason, this council seems to forget that in 2008, we had the greatest recession in the last 100 years. We also seem to forget that in 2011, we had another recession, and that for the following decade that we had almost as many city managers as we had years in that decade. So when we talked about constant leadership and when we talk about deficits, I just want to really impress that it's taken in the context of the time that we live in. The staff absolutely works hard, but I don't know why we keep taking pot shots at past councils and past administrations. It doesn't seem to move the ball forward, and why we can't keep the conversation on what's happening today continues to just kind of boggle my mind. That being said, I would like to talk about a couple things here, Mr. Solors, and I have a few questions. One, it was mentioned that we're going to have an $8 million surplus in our general fund. And it is mentioned on page 37 of the agenda for those that are following along that 6.3 million of that is from the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. And as everyone is probably very familiar, our ARPA funds are a fixation and a passion of mine, making sure that the way that we use it goes towards supporting those that have been most affected by COVID, and also making sure that we use it for infrastructure projects for a lot of repairs that have been long overdue. I am kind of confused and I don't understand some of the accounting here. So when council allocated the $16.7 million towards the 3 projects, I believe it was 7 or 8 million for new vehicles, 4 million for sewers, and then the balance was left for IT. When we created that spending plan, how is that accounted in our books? Because right here we're saying that this is general fund money, but from my understanding, since it's been allocated, I mean, are we really looking at this as a surplus, or are we looking at these are monies that have been spent and have been allocated?
So when ARPA was passed, there was a number of uses for the coronavirus local fiscal funds. Revenue loss was one of the categories that cities could use. So as I did the calculations on revenue loss, that's when it was determined that the city had over a $20 million revenue loss caused by the pandemic, which exceeded our $16+ million ARPA award. So we could recognize that entire 16 million that we receive as revenue loss and credit it towards the general fund. At the September 2021 study session, that's when the presentation was given in terms of using it towards sewer, towards vehicles, towards IT. So a portion of that has been applied towards the revenue loss in the general fund. A portion of that will be used in this fiscal year per the adopted budget for IT needs, and then we have some ongoing vehicle purchases that we're making using those funds. So we've booked the revenue award as unearned revenue, and we recognize it as, in this case, $6+ million as revenue loss in the general fund. That entire $60 million we're going to use as revenue loss. We just have some more specific uses for it, quite frankly, like the IT network upgrade, vehicles, sewer projects. And you'll see that the $6 million that we recognize the general fund is part of that overall revenue loss category.
And so I guess to conceptualize the 16.7 million in ARPA funds that we received, even though it may be marked down as, and it may appear as a surplus in the general fund, this is already money that we were expecting. It's not because of any particularly incredible performance, and it's money that's been allocated for certain uses. And this isn't to take away from any of the work that we've done, but just to be accurate here, that money has essentially been spoken for.
It has been. I mean, of that $8.1 million surplus, even without the help of the revenue loss, we still would have ended with a surplus. So,
but just to be clear, the city council voted 5-0 to take ARPA money and convert it into revenue loss. This council supported that vote to turn that money to take away the revenue losses, and this is every city in the United States got these dollars, and cities were given the option of an equation to determine how much revenue loss COVID caused in Montebello. And for us, the equation yielded more than $16 million of loss. That money was voted on by this council to be used for that purpose, and that's why it was booked as general fund reserve.
Although I would say, Mr. City Manager, with all due respect, that I think that would mischaracterize, at least my intent, maybe my colleagues understood it that way. In that presentation, when the money was broken down for certain categories, my understanding was that carried along with the way the revenue loss was going to be spent. So acknowledging that the category which it's under allows it to be spent for different things, adding on another layer on top of that, it's my position that the council, categorized how we were going to spend it. And like I said, not to take away from anything, but just to say the $8 million in surplus, we've known that this is coming, that this is spent, and also to acknowledge that this is just 6.2 out of $8 million in surplus that we're expending. So that's good news. And to kind of move this along a little bit, on page 42, we talk about Parks and Rec is projecting an additional $466,000 in expenses, primarily in the area of part-time wages and really linked to city special events. It's a little concerning for me that already in the first quarter here that we've overspent by $500,000 for these special events, and that wasn't already kind of projected just as recently as June. And I would like, along with the receipt of this report, and if I need to ask for the consent of my colleagues, do that, if we can get the budget reports for those special events. So everything that's covered under the $466,000, but in particular, the fireworks show, the Street Fest, and the Heritage Festival, just to understand. I mean, these are all programs that our community has loved and enjoyed and really love participating in. But I think sometimes the numbers and the way that in which we spend our money kind of gets lost here as we're enjoying these things. So just to really kind of drive home that, that these things do come at a cost if those reports could be provided. Do I have to ask for a consensus of my colleagues here?
We'll provide the reports. But I also want to clarify that we added farmers markets way after the budget was approved. So there's a lot of cost that goes into setting up and breaking down a farmers market. So there's a lot of resources that was added to that event that was approved by council and directed after the budget was approved.
Thank you very much for the clarification. And this just kind of seemed a little bit anomalous and just kind of caught my attention. So just as a general question, on the same page, on page 42, it mentions that the communications division filled a vacant position sooner than anticipated. And so I was just wondering how we would not have prepared, how we would have hired someone before we were prepared to fund that position.
Let me kind of explain the logic and how I build a salary and benefits budget for 450 positions across the $200 million all funds budget. When we have vacancies, I'll work with the department to identify, is this a priority? Do you think you're going to recruit for this? And sometimes I'll get a flat out like, you know what, it's not a priority, I'm not going to hire it this year. So I will budget very little or nothing for that position. In this case, in working with the fire department, they had difficulty filling that position. It's a highly technical position. It has some difficulty filling it. And so at the time, it was anticipated that the person wouldn't be onboarded until 6 months into the fiscal year. I consider this a positive thing that they actually were able to find a qualified candidate, onboard them, and get them to work. So, but on the flip side, I should have projected, in this case, 12 months, but again, in consultation with the department, we felt like, and given their past experience would not be able to hire somebody quickly, we figured 6 months of salary. In this case, they're gonna be here for a full 12 months. So that's where that projection comes from. And that's kind of my logic throughout in terms of budgeting for vacant positions.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And congratulations on filling that position sooner than expected. Definitely a plus for our community.
Yes.
In terms of the 4 positions that we're adding for the 2 administrative assistants and the principal risk officer and risk management assistant, there is no real kind of breakdown or explanation as to why we're adding the senior administrative assistant. So I was wondering if council could understand the purpose of those positions.
I mean, I can speak to the position we have for admin, the senior admin assistant. That's Samantha's old position. I don't know if the council knows this, but Zoe has become the citywide operator for the entire city of Montebello. So every single call that goes live is answered by our office manager. She's been doing this for quite a while. There is going to be an internal conversation on how to fix that, but we do need a person in our office that can, help with phones and help, move things to other departments. But we do have an overall issue with how we answer our phones and what our system looks like. But this is a position that's direly needed in our office, just to help offset some of what Kimberly does and the city clerk's office does, because they do a lot to help. But that takes away from their work of doing city clerk work. So we're hopeful that if approved, this position would greatly help us move along some dire needs in the city manager's office.
And just to understand, in terms of answering phones and helping with the office, and in terms of parity across departments, a senior administrative assistant is standard for those kinds of duties?
It's probably the lowest level clerical position we have in the city.
Thank you, appreciate that. And just very quickly on the principal risk officer and the risk management assistant, just to understand the impact of the cost a little bit more. It's mentioned in the agenda that the two new positions will help offset a little bit of the third-party vendor costs, I think, which are something around $80,000, $90,000. What kind of salaries are we expecting for a position like principal risk officer and risk management assistant?
So I'm going to turn to, yes, Nick Razzo can answer that one much more quickly than I can. Thanks, man.
Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Member City Council, good evening. Yes, Council Member, to answer that question, first, just to kind of give the diagram of HR risk management. Risk management is composed of general liability and workers' comp. Workers' comp, you could look at it more of internal, employee-focused. These positions will be more resident-focused. They're general liability. The majority and high percentage of claims that, and we at any given time could have about 75 claims on the GL side that are, again, mainly from residents. These two positions will be more resident-focused. When it comes to the salary, we're looking at 174 on the max end for principal risk officer and 64 on the max when it comes to the risk management assistant. And also, too, I'd be remiss, currently risk management is comprised of one person, our risk manager here, Gina. And although Gina is terrific, she is pulled in about 75 different directions along with all our workers' comp matters all in a single day. So again, conceptually, we see this as resident focused so that we can now get to the general liability claims quicker, more efficiently, be able to get them off the books. And as you mentioned, council member, get the less third-party support. We're able to drop the close to $90,000 from the general support from third party, which whenever we could handle complaints from residents in-house, it's always obviously better customer service. These two positions will obviously pay for themselves in the amount of time that'll take to close claims. Costs will come down, and we'll be able to realize the rest of those salaries. They will pay for themselves plus more.
And Nick, if I may, one of our challenges, just because Gina is swamped with a lot of work, is when we have accidents, TC collisions, and our infrastructure gets damaged, a pole, street light, traffic signal, getting restitution back takes time and effort. It really takes somebody to really track that, work with insurances, and make sure we're getting our money back when they hit a pole. That's an area that we can definitely improve on. And if we have somebody that's a little bit more dedicated and has more time to do that, we can probably recover 100% of a lot of our accident infrastructure issues. And that'll also save the city quite a bit of money when we're going after restitution issues.
Gina says she could do it all. However, 24-hour workday is impossible. So.
Thank you very much, appreciate that. And my last question is regarding the compensation plan resolution for the building official. I was just curious about this particular position because we just completed the class and comp study this year. And so, given that we were moving all of our positions to market and, know, we went through a year, 2-year study to understand what that is. It's just interesting to see that this particular position is coming back to increase it yet again.
I can speak on that, Nick, briefly. This is an area of grave concern, not just for Montebello, but I think every municipality who's looking for a building official. It's a very specialized field, and quite frankly, there's not enough work being done to promote or train or get people ready to be building officials. We've gone through, I believe, 2 recruitments.
Correct.
We had a candidate lined up, and he got a better offer. They countered him or he stayed. The building official we left went to Calabasas and got a significant pay raise. So we have been acting without a building official for quite a while. We use a contract service to do that. Instead of trying to do a 3rd recruitment, knowing and talking to a lot of cities and talking to a lot of our colleagues, it is a problem position that we're going to have to address, and we're hoping that if the council agrees to increasing the salary, we may be able to land a candidate that will want to come here to Montebello. But it is something that is a long-term concern. I know the building official organization has been talking about the challenges they're having, and there's just not a whole lot of people that are doing this type of work.
And so that was missed in the class and comp study, how competitive the market was?
Yeah, when they look at the market, they don't really look at that aspect of, is this a problem position? They're just looking at what that position gets paid. We went with it, we tried to recruit it, and we had no luck. We could try again. We talked about incentives. Obviously, we're not bringing incentives at this point, but we may try a 3rd time and not be successful. We may come back to the council asking for some type of incentive maybe to try to attract folks to, at least in positions like those that are troublesome to fill.
And just to add to that too, we reached out to the 3rd party, and over the past 12 months or so, this position in particular has moved quite a bit in the market, as the city manager mentioned. And although with the class and comp, as you mentioned, council member, we have seen a significant increase in the strength of our polls among a lot of all our current recruitments right now. The strength of our polls are through the roof in comparison to what we saw pre-class and comp. However, in this position in particular, in consultation with PSPC, this position, for whatever reason, is highly competitive, especially in the last probably 10 to 12 months.
And Councilmember, I think the unintended consequence of PEPRA, when PERS changed the pension system, it really made cities less attractive to other agencies or the private sector. So it's really harder to attract those specialized positions, especially those that have experience that you may have 5-10 years in government, to come to a small city to continue that work when sometimes the benefits are better and it may be a pay cut to come here. We're seeing that in dispatchers, we're seeing it in civil engineers, we're seeing it in obviously building officials, we're seeing it in police, we're seeing it in fire, we're seeing it in bus operators. So we're starting to see the unintended consequences. We've seen this in conferences. We've talked about the silver tsunami. We're getting that, my age retiring, and you're not seeing the backfill that's ready to come in. So that's going to be an ongoing challenge, and I'm sure we're going to be back discussing this quite frequently. But for now, these are the positions we really need help with and trying to fill, and we're trying to do what we can to either make it a little bit more attractive and or incentivize it somehow.
Madam Mayor, just want to say thank you to Director Slores and Director Razo and Mr. Bobadilla for providing some color here to the numbers that we're seeing in our quarterly financial report. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Melendez, questions, comments?
Just some quick comments. It's exciting to see the surplus. Exciting to see our reserves, healthy reserves, and in regards to the positions, I have to talk about first coming into the council over here. We really were running on skeleton crews here in the city. So to fill the positions, to give the services that our residents need, the support that our staff needs, it's always exciting. I think it shows a healthy work environment. It shows a healthy budget, and it's just exciting to bring more people along to assist with all the much work that's out there. So again, thank you for the presentation, and things are looking good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Peralta?
Yes, just want to start off by saying thank you very much for the presentation. I don't necessarily have, some of my questions were answered previously, but just to share some of my comments. Just moving forward, it'd be great to really be able to have the roles and responsibilities as part of the agenda in these items. I know that's something that I have asked for in the past, and I think it helps us understand the importance of some of these positions that are being created. So kind of having that information prior, I think could possibly save us some time as far as having to discuss it during council meetings. I also do agree that personally, I don't understand how, despite council voting for coronavirus relief funds to be considered a revenue loss, I don't understand how, despite us also voting for the allocation of these funds, how it is still considered, how those $6 million are still considered a surplus if they've already been allocated for certain projects. So we know that in the near future, in coming months, that money is going to be spent. So that's where I just don't agree that $6 million out of those 8 should be considered surplus types of funds. And just in general, I do understand the need for some of these positions. I do believe and feel that some of these senior admin positions are very top-heavy. I want to continue encouraging council and prioritizing public safety, being able to have more positions such as traffic enforcement officers that really respond to a lot of the immediate needs of our community. Those types of positions should be, I think, prioritized over sometimes some of these other top-heavy type of positions that are definitely needed, but I think it comes down to the priority of each of our perspectives. Apart from that, that concludes my comments. Thank you so much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez, any questions or comments?
Thank you, Michael, again. It is really nice to see that we're actually not on the brink of financial distress. It's nice to see that we have, again, a healthy surplus, a budget. Again, to reiterate what our city manager said earlier, for decades, the city has not adopted a balanced budget. And sometimes I think it's important to bring poor practices from the past, because I think this is what got us to a point of potentially being at the brink. Again, when I first came on board in 2018, we inherited just a lot of unfortunate financial absurdities. And yes, we were part of that, adopting these budgets. I do want to highlight the fact that Gina, I think she is often, I don't think people understand how important her position is, and how what she does and her responsibilities, her duties under everything that she does, kind of goes hand in hand with us also having a healthy budget. I mean, everyone in their respective positions, but Gina, my hat's off to you. You too, Nick, but I have to give it to Gina. Anyway, thank you. This is exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few questions as well. Will this be put up online for all of us to see, and we can share it on all of our social media platforms, and we can pick at it whatever we'd like to share? But has this council ever used Measure R money, A money, to balance our budget like previous councils?
I know in previous budgets, we did sell our Prop A money as one-time funds. So I do know in previous years that has been done.
Those previous years before
Yes.
us, but not like this council. is
Correct. Yeah,
Correct.
not,
Because I know
not
that
in the last
was
3 years.
years before, but we haven't done that.
Correct.
have we ever used city assets? Like, have we ever, like this council?
Other than pledging assets towards a bond issue, no, we haven't sold assets or done anything like that that would try again to raise one-time funds.
Has this council ever misplaced, $800 million? Like,
Not that I'm aware.
but we've taken responsibility for misplaced monies.
Correct.
Awesome. And there was a slide, that deficit, you mentioned that 8.1 million surplus, did I hear you correct? The auditor did not take that into consideration?
That is correct. One of the bones of contention that the city manager and I have is the age of the data that's used by that dashboard. It's a year and a half old by the time it's used. So if they waited a few months, they'd have this fresh new data in front of them, and the results would be night and day to the positive.
And there's people on both sides of Metro Heights, some like it, some don't. But correct me if I'm wrong, it is going to increase our tax bracket, but we only get 9 cents on that property because we share it with all other tax collecting entities.
Correct.
And we're kind of all the way at almost at the bottom.
Down towards the bottom. The county gets a large share, our school districts. Again, very important, but yeah, Montebello only gets 9 cents out of every tax dollar.
Got it. Because even there's a property listed further down on another item that I believe it's item 10. We sold it for a couple $100,000, but we only got probably like $45,000 on it, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And that HDL sales tax consultant, I know we often rotate, correct, when we do our own audit?
The HDL is, that we stick with. We stick with our HDL. It's our independent auditors that we rotate, our independent auditors, yes.
I believe every 3 years.
Every 3 years?
3 to 5 years, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is the first year of this new audit.
That we've used,
Yes.
so okay, just making
Yes.
sure that we're still on the up and up.
Yes.
Keeping us transparent and all, okay. And just, again, thanking our community for putting our trust for the Measure H money, and also all of you, our employees that came out to help myself walk and help it pass, because I know if we waited till November, it wouldn't have passed, because that C word, I know we would not have get it passed. And I hate to put you on the spot. Are you, I know you're good with numbers, but are you pretty qualified? You have a degree in it, or fine arts, music?
No, I count on my 20-plus years of doing this, along with my master's degree in public administration and the years of experience of actually doing this.
So you're pretty new in this category as well. Got it, okay. Thank you. So it is up at council level. Thank you so much for your love of numbers. I appreciate that. So with that, can I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Can I have a second? I'm sorry, I believe I heard
No,
you.
I'll second it.
Mr. City Clerk, could you please call the roll vote?
Yes, Councilmember Torres?
Aye.
Councilmember Melendez?
Aye.
Councilmember Peralta?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez?
Aye.
Mayor Cobos-Cawthorn?
And I vote aye. Congratulations. It passed unanimously.
Thank you.
On to consent calendar. Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. This time we have the consent calendar, which includes items numbers 9 through 26, and 26 as amended. It'd be appropriate then for me to poll the council to see of items that wish to be pulled, starting with Councilmember Torres.
That would be items 9, 13, 18, 20, and 23.
9, 13, 18, 20 and 23. 20 and 23. Okay. Councilmember Melendez.
No items.
Councilmember Peralta.
9, 13, and 20.
Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez.
No items.
And Mayor Cobos Cawthorn.
Item 16.
16. Okay. Okay. With that, then it's appropriate to entertain a motion to approve items numbers, let's see, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 17, 19, 21, 22, 24, 25, and 26 with that one amendment. Be appropriate to entertain a motion to approve those items.
Can I have a
City Attorney,
motion?
I believe Councilmember Torres pulled 19, if I'm not mistaken.
Which item?
No, okay.
No, he pulled 18 and 20.
Okay.
Can I
We
have-
need a motion, Mayor?
Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Mr. City Clerk, can I have a roll vote, please?
Councilmember Torres?
Aye.
Councilor Melendez?
Aye.
Councilor Peralta?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez?
Aye.
Mayor Cobos Cawthorn?
And I vote aye, that carries 5-0.
Okay, that takes us to item number 9. This is the consideration of second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2454, 2455, and 2456, approving development agreements between the City of Montebello and Clear Channel Outdoor LLC for the properties located at 1720 South Bluff Road, 1633 Washington Boulevard, and 1915 West Whittier Boulevard. And that was first pulled by Councilmember Torres.
Councilmember Torres, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't know if it's appropriate to do it at the beginning or at the end, Madam Mayor, Mr. City Attorney, but I'd like to motion for division of the question. We are considering 3 agreements for electronic billboard signs in different areas of the city. For 2 of them, I generally have no objection, but I do have, I would like to bring some things to my colleagues' attention in terms of the electronic billboard that would be placed on Whittier Boulevard, very near residential areas. Would it be possible to approve ordinances 2445 and 2455 and the related agreements and then discuss 2456? Or what would the proper procedure be?
That would be, well, yes, you could approve different development agreements without having to approve them all. But, well, that depends on the motion of the council, so. Sure.
Do you want to speak on 2456 first, then?
Sure.
Okay.
We were able to hear from the applicant at the last meeting. We were able to hear about the use of LEDs, about standards for the amount of light over the ambient light, about adjusting during different periods of weather, whether it be overcast or rainy. But I would like to ask my colleagues if anyone went down to the area where this sign would be installed. It is, as the letter from the attorney also commented on, it's within 100 feet of several residences. You were talking about direct line of sight from several houses. I went down there to take a few photos if anyone would like to see what that line of sight looks like from a personal angle. And as I was out there, you know, one of the residents came out asking, you know, hey, like, what are you doing here? Kind of was curious why someone would be taking photos, and, you know, just kind of explaining to him what would be installed. You know, we're not talking about a lot of people, and we're not talking about an impact citywide, but we are talking about the impact on the very immediate
community, on a community of young families, on a community of renters. And I asked the council, what is this impact to that small community in exchange for? It's in exchange for essentially a couple $1,000s. In terms of the city budget, this money is a drop in the bucket. In terms of the lives of those residents that live at those homes, we're talking about a 20-year agreement, the place where they live, the place where they sleep, the place where they come home at night. And just really, I asked my colleagues to consider the kind of impact that this kind of display will have within just 100 feet, 150 feet of several homes. In addition to asking that my colleagues approve ordinances 2454 and 2455, which are located in heavy industrial areas, which are located along major trucking routes. We're talking about Washington Boulevard, right next to major warehouses where it really isn't going to affect anyone at all. These are nowhere near residences. To consider those residents that would be living very near this electronic billboard. And in addition, so that we don't have to face this issue going forward, because another thing that I would like to bring my colleagues' attention to is that these ordinances are being created specifically as a carve-out against the general prohibition of electronic billboards along the 60 and 5 freeways. If you look at the municipal code, it says very specifically that only within the digital display corridors along these 2 freeways are these electronic billboards allowed. The approval of these ordinances expands that and allows these specific locations. So in addition to considering the residents and essentially striking down the electronic billboard on Whittier, I would also say that I find it would be appropriate that council also direct staff to do a study of places where we may like to insert electronic billboards, so we don't have to do these carve-outs time and time again and kind of approach this kind of discussion. This is a discussion that council had back in 2016, I believe, to establish these electronic display corridors. With the electronic display that we'll be considering for Grant Ray Park, we're probably going to come across the same issue. And in that vein is why I would ask for my colleagues to join me and really kind of consider on a citywide level where we find these things to be appropriate and update that conversation. Madam Mayor, I don't know if this would be the appropriate motion here, but I would motion to approve ordinances 2454 and 2455 in the related agreements. I would, my second motion, or Mr. City Attorney, we can consider these separately.
So the motion is to approve, waive second reading, approve adopt the ordinance 2454 and 2455. And as to 2456?
A motion to not approve, and then a third motion to conduct a study of places where we see electronic billboards in the future.
Okay. And
then opening the floor for my colleagues for comments.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve 2454, 2455, and a study for 2456. Do I have a second?
May I make a comment real quick, Mayor?
Go ahead, Councilmember Melendez.
I'm not in opposition to the motion that Councilmember Torres made. My only question to staff would be, does this, in getting rid of one of the ordinances, does it impact the whole potential contractual obligation?
Yes.
Just before we take that vote.
Yes.
Okay, so I have first, do I have a second?
Second, and if I could just provide a comment. You know, similarly so, I agree in the first two ordinances in that it doesn't directly affect our residents. You know, I think the third one, having taken a ride down there, Councilmember Torres is right. It's not affecting a lot of community members, but it is affecting some. And I think it's important for council, as we transition to districts, to really understand the importance of you know, items that will be affecting our residents, will be affecting certain parts of Montebello. And you know, if my colleagues ever came to me in the future about an item that was directly affecting their constituents, I would support them, because I do understand the importance of being able to meet the needs of our city as a whole, despite not necessarily being that district representative. And so that is why I am in support of approving the first two ordinances and not the third one, which would be directly affecting certain community members of that area.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes,
I had a sidebar conversation with Councilmember Torres, and I want to see if I can make a substitute motion to, I don't know if I need a substitute motion, but to table the item just for a future meeting, just to have a deeper discussion about this and see the implications and the impacts that this can have on the rest of the agreements.
So the motion is to adopt items 1 and 2 and table item 3, or continue item 3 to another date. Is that-
Mayor, if I may? If we want to give the Clear Channel an opportunity to talk about that sign before there's a vote, I think that would be appreciated.
Can we hear from the applicant?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Lane Lawson. I'm the Vice President of Public Affairs for California. Understand that this location is at a question. However, there is an existing sign there currently that has floodlights on it. So it's already an illuminated sign. This is just changing the technology, and the technology that will be going there is more directional in nature, and it's directed more out to the street instead of flooding all over the place. So I would encourage you to pass all 3 locations, and we'd be happy to work with the city and monitor that particular location and come up with any solutions if there's ever any complaints. But we don't think there will be. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there's a motion and a second on the floor.
And I believe Mr. Bobadilla said that if one of them is carved out, that affects all 3 agreements. So I believe Mr. Melendez's substitute motion would be to continue the item as a whole to make sure that the entire thing isn't affected and that we can further consider the ramifications.
So,
Councilmember
Torres, you made the original motion, so you're withdrawing your motion to make a different motion, or is that?
No, I'm doing a substitute motion to just bring all the agreements back, the ordinances back into a future meeting.
Okay.
To have a deeper discussion and.
All of them?
Yeah.
So motion is to continue this matter to a future date.
Okay, so all 3 continued. Okay, can I have a second to that?
I'll second.
Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez, did you have a comment?
No, well, yes, I did. I have a question. So again, Councilmember Melendez had asked the question prior to this, and this was how it would affect, or the effects, and maybe you could speak to that, Renee, because I want to make sure that this is all clear.
Yeah, this application went through the Planning Commission, so it was vetted through the Planning Commission. It came to you for first reading. There was a presentation. The negotiation with Clear Channel anticipated 3 billboards, digital, in exchange for the monetary compensation that the city would receive. I think it's pretty clear that what's there now, if the council decides to leave it, is probably worse than having a new sign. So if we're trying to help the nearby residents, I think it'd be incumbent to look at that a little closer than to not. But if we break it up, definitely the compensation value would change.
Okay, so I have a first, and I believe you seconded, correct, Councilmember Torres? So we'll bring it back to a future meeting. Oh, just a second.
Mayor, do you want me to do the roll call vote for the substitute motion?
Just staff
I just want to make a comment that, that if there is a continuance on this item, Clear Channel would respectfully request that this not come back to the council. Does not.
Would you like to make another comment, sir?
What we could do, I think it would be okay with revisiting the one location in question and moving the other two. If we could do that, that'd be great. And then we could come back and work on the other location.
If I may, can I amend my motion to pass the two, I think it's 2454, 2455, and then bring 2456 to a future meeting?
Is the applicant okay with that, or when the applicant is ready, because he's going to be the one that's going to revisit the location, correct?
Yeah, we're happy to come back at any time that the council wants to come back. We would like to move forward with all three locations, but if you want to continue the other one, we're happy to come back and work with the city on that location.
Okay, so then I have a motion from Councilmember Melendez. Do I have a second?
Mayor, for clarification, on that motion for the study, is that?
2454, 2455, and we're holding on 2456.
You're continuing that, you're continuing the third item, 2456, to a future date to be determined.
And to Mr. City Manager's question, my original motion had three parts. One was approval of two agreements. One was to continue one of the agreements, and then the last portion was to do a study of the city of where this council would see electronic billboards in the future. So the last part was directing staff for that study.
Well, Mayor, we now have a lot of motions floating around. Okay, so let's back
start
up.
over.
Well, there was a motion originally by Councilmember Torres, and then that was a substitute motion from Councilmember Melendez.
Right.
And then that motion was then
2 out of the 3.
amended by Councilmember Melendez, and now it's attempted to be amended by Councilmember Torres.
All right, I'll make it easy, promise. I'm going to withdraw my motion because that's what he originally was asking for, 24, 25, and then the rest of the stuff, but.
So the motion is to approve, 2454, 2455, and that includes waiving second reading and adopting the ordinance and development agreement and all the necessary actions.
This is getting complicated.
Right. What's the easiest for the applicant?
So we have to understand this. There are public benefits associated with these agreements. One being $100,000 to replace the existing sign here at City Hall. So if we move forward, that is baked into all of the development agreements. So that's going to be a little bit of a negotiation point, which is what got us to, we've negotiated these agreements, which is what got us here tonight. So in my opinion, it's unfair to the applicant that we're kind of at this time asking them to hold on one, because they have to go back and then figure out if it still pencils out for them. So I just wanted to make that clear before we move forward here.
Madam Mayor, I have a comment.
Councilor Peralta?
Yes, thank you. I think none of us are generally opposed at more billboards. I think we're very welcoming of that. It's just really being able to find a third location that best fits within our community and doesn't necessarily affect them. So I think, and I don't know if I'm speaking out of line, but I think there is that interest and assurance from this council that we are welcoming of being able to find a third location. It's just figuring out where. And so I hope that the applicant can be understanding of that, because at the end of the day, as council, we're weighing two different balances. One, working with the vendor, and also representing our community and ensuring that the items that we vote for aren't going to negatively impact them. And so I do hope that my colleagues do consider that as well.
So would it, and Madam Mayor, members of the council, would it be appropriate to condition this where the applicant monitors the sign, and if there are any impacts, then they would mitigate those impacts? either by shutting the sign down and relocating it, but we can visit that should that become an issue. I just wanted to propose that as maybe a condition.
And I'm sorry, Mr.
Councilmember
Palumbi, but
Torres.
thank you, Madam Mayor. The suggestion is that the sign is monitored if it causes an issue to shut it down completely, and if it's determined to be an issue at that time, to then relocate another sign?
Yes.
I guess my main question would be how that's determined, what level of complaint, and how often, how significant or severe. That just seems kind of loose, and I mean, I don't want to put the applicant through unnecessary expenditures. So I think it's a little quick to say this evening without understanding better.
Would we be able to establish a baseline of what the current sign is doing, what the new sign would do? And then if it's determined that the new sign is less than the baseline, then it should be better than what was there now. And if there's complaints about it, we can obviously address them and look to see if we can continue to work to address those. But I think establishing the baseline is important, because if you choose to do nothing, that sign stays with probably a light that's probably worse than what we would do with the new billboard.
So would that bring us back to continuing that particular ordinance and wait for that information as we establish that baseline?
I think they can establish that baseline pretty quickly. And we would have that information documented. We probably would not allow them to put up the new sign until they tell us what that baseline is. And then they would install the new sign, and then they would monitor that to ensure that they're way below the baseline levels and demonstrate to us that this billboard is less evasive than what's there currently today.
Correct. There is also an electrical permit that needs to be signed off, so that could be a condition of obtaining.
Does that make
permit.
sense? Okay.
Sure.
Please.
We go out and monitor these before, once we turn them on, we want to make sure they're dialed in, right? So they're only at 0.3 foot candles over ambient light. I know that doesn't mean much to anybody, but right now, if we were to go out there, take a foot candle meter, turn off the board, take another reading, turn it back on, take another reading, and then when we install the new board, make sure that whatever that reading is less. I could probably say that the new board is going to be less off the first reading, but if we need to lower it even more, we can.
I absolutely appreciate the consideration, the problem solving here this evening. As long as the community is positively impacted, I would be open to that.
And if we can, I mean, you could do that, you do that test, right? Will you be able to write us a report that demonstrates?
Yeah, we'll have an illumination engineer put together a report, go out there, and they do it for us in Los Angeles when we replace boards now. They can go out there and take a reading of what it is now, do a full report, and then when we install the new board, they'll do another full report with it illuminated. What they do is they turn the board white, so it's the brightest that it can possibly be, take a reading, then turn it off, and then turn it back on, and take another reading.
And if we receive the report, the council has my commitment, I will provide a report to all the council members once I receive that, so you have that for your records as well, so that shows the difference. And then we'll obviously continue to monitor that over time, and we'll get those reports as well.
Yeah, we continually monitor our boards 24/7.
And then you can do it at the different times of operation, because, right, daylight savings time, it's a lot darker right now compared to April. You know,
Correct. Mayor, there's a light sensor that's on the board that automatically dims it. And if there's ever an issue with that, our 24/7 monitoring sees that, and it'll shut the board to dark, right?
And that's all done remotely, right? It's done remotely.
Yes, all remote.
Great. Okay. So second reading for this. So,
So with that being understood, Mr. City Attorney, I'm not quite sure what the motion would be here, but
I lost you. Go back into your mic.
I'm not quite sure what the motion would be here, but maybe the city manager can kind of restate the understanding for council.
And we'll condition the development agreement to include that language as well.
So I'll withdraw my previous motion and motion to approve 2454 and 2455 unconditionally, and 2456 with the conditions that we just discussed.
Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Mr. City Clerk, please call roll vote.
Of course. Councilmember Torres?
Aye.
Councilmember Melendez?
Aye.
Councilmember Peralta?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez?
Aye.
Mayor Cobos Cawthorn?
And I vote aye, that carries unanimously. On to the next item, I believe 13.
Item 13 is consideration of approval of agreement number 4047 with KTUA for the Rio Hondo River Access Improvement Project Design Services.
Councilmember Torres, I believe you pulled this item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, yes. On page 258 of the agenda, the staff report reads, on June 22nd, 2022, the City Council approved agreements with 2 consultants for on-call architectural and engineering design services. It goes on to say that staff solicited quotes from these 2 consultants in addition to KTUA and Transtech engineers for this project. I just wanted to kind of, I guess, clarify something with staff, because when you go back to that June 2022 staff item and you look at the bench that was established, KTUA is not on the approved bench, and so I just have the question if this item would be more appropriate for RFP.
That's an excellent question, and David has the answer, and if you can please give us your thought process on this one.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, and Councilmember Torres. Thank you for the question. So essentially what we established was kind of the history of how we got to that bench, which would typically have 2 architectural engineer firms that we thought would be interested in this project. So for purposes of the council meeting and the public, we wanted the council to know our thought process, which was go to the bench, let Public Works establish the bench, ask those folks if they were interested in the project per that RFP that happened. Then since they were not interested, we try to use other architectural landscapers that we were able to call for this. So first went to the bench, which was established for this purpose. Since they weren't interested, now we're referencing the municipal code section that allows for professional services to be taken to council without the RFP process. So first, the process was use the bench that was established for this purpose, but since they were both not interested or not available or not within their expertise, going to a 3rd and a 4th vendor. The 4th vendor, KTUA, was the one that decided to provide an estimate.
And David Sosowski, one of the comments you had mentioned to us was KTUA were the consultants that helped us with the park master plan, and they helped prepare that, and they were very familiar, and you felt that that was a better choice because of that knowledge?
Yeah, and that's actually 100% correct, Mr. City Manager. So given though we still wanted to follow the competitive process that was established with the bench, KTUA, I wish they applied to be on that bench, but they are very much familiar with a lot of the parks, open spaces, trails that we have studied in the park master plan, and identified this location as a trailhead to improve walkability, bikeability, horse access. So that's why they were consulted for this as well. Thank you very much for the explanation. And with that, Madam Mayor, I would motion to approve if my colleagues don't have additional comments.
Okay.
I'll second it.
I believe Councilmember Peralta, did you pull this item?
I did, but Director Sosowski provided the context that we needed, so thank you.
Okay. All right, so I have a motion and then I have a second. City Clerk, if you can please call a roll vote.
Councilmember Torres?
Aye.
Councilor Melendez?
Aye.
Councilor Peralta?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez?
Aye.
Mayor Cobos-Cothran?
And I vote aye, that carries unanimously.
Next one is item 16, which is the consideration of approval to provide recruitment incentives to qualified firefighter paramedics. That was requested by the mayor.
So I'm excited about this item because, well, Montebello Fire Department is near and dear to my heart, but this would be an excellent way for us to, for the lack of the word, beef up our fire department. And by offering a lateral bonus, what a great opportunity to get more firefighters and paramedics to protect our community even more. So with that, I'd like to make the motion to approve the item.
I'll
I'll
second it.
second.
Thank you. Mr. City Clerk, if you can please call a roll.
Councilmember Torres?
Aye.
Councilor Melendez?
Aye.
Councilmember Peralta?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez?
Aye.
Mayor Cobos-Cothran?
I vote aye. Thank you so much for that.
Next item is item 18, which is consideration of approval of professional services agreement number 4039 with Kim Turner LLC for police communications consulting services, requested by Councilmember Torres.
I'll withhold my comments on this item and now motion to approve.
Okay, so I have a
second it.
motion. I have a second. Mr. City Clerk?
Councilmember Torres?
Aye.
Councilor Melendez?
Aye.
Councilor Peralta?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez?
Aye.
Mayor Cobos-Cothran?
Aye, and that carries unanimously.
Mayor, if I may, just really quickly, just for clarification of the council on this item, it reverts back to our conversation we had on the budget. This is a person that's going to help us with our dispatch and try to figure out how we can come up with strategic solutions to help our challenge with hiring dispatchers. This is a conversation we're having with the city of San Gabriel, city of Alhambra, city of Monterey Park. We're all struggling with dispatch services. As you know, our fire department uses a regional dispatch, Verdugo. We don't do it for police. We have our own. So this is an area of high interest, and hopefully we can come up with some key solutions we can bring out to council to try to solve this problem.
Congratulations, much needed position. Okay, item 20.
Item number 20 is consideration of approval of amendment number 1 to agreement number 3957 with 789 Inc. to retain professional services for citywide branding needs.
Councilmember Torres?
There's a few different points that I'd like to make here. First, I just want to state a little bit of concern for what seems to be a bit of a pattern where we're entering into purchase orders for $50,000 to initiate contracts and later making amendments to those contracts and increasing the amounts. If this had come to us initially as a $104,000 contract, it would have gone out to bid. By going this way, it seems that we're able to amend the contracts and kind of circumvent that process. So I wanted to note that. The second thing I wanted to talk about, and this seems like a little bit of a discrepancy between the staff report and the agreement. On page 688 of the agenda, the staff report says that the contract is going to be extended to June 2023, which is a three-month extension, supposed to end March 2023, with an increase to the total not to exceed amount of $104,000. However, on page 690 of the agenda, in the amendment to the professional services agreement, it says that the contract is being extended by 1 year to March 2024. So I'm kind of confused as to what the expected termination of the contract is, and if the $104,000 is funding only to June 2023, or if the $104,000 is supposed to fund the contract through March 2024.
Yes, good evening, council member. I'll be happy to try and address the question for you. There may have been a discrepancy in the language provided that you're referring to. I believe the current intention is to extend the contract to June of 2023 based on input from the consultant on when they think they can complete the current scope of work that you're being asked to approve at this moment.
So would it be appropriate to approve the contract language to reflect June 2023 and March 2024?
That would be accurate, in my opinion, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that slight amendment to the contract, Madam Mayor, I would motion to approve if my colleagues don't have any further comments.
I'll second it.
I withdraw my comments. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a first, I have a second. Mr. City Clerk, can you please call, oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Melendez? did
No,
you-
no.
Okay. Mr. City Clerk, please call roll vote.
Councilmember Torres?
Aye.
Councilor Melendez?
Aye.
Councilor Peralta?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez?
Aye.
Mayor Cobos-Cawthorn?
And I vote aye, that carries unanimously. On to item 23.
23, yes. 23 is consideration to approve, draw authorization for approval for additional purposes, purchases from the Sauce Creative Service Corporation for fiscal year 2022, 2023.
Councilmember Torres?
I apologize, that was an erroneous addition. Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Mr. City Clerk? Please call roll vote.
Councilmember Torres?
Aye.
Councilor Melendez?
Aye.
Councilor Peralta?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez?
Aye.
Mayor Cobos-Cawthorn?
And I vote aye, and that carries unanimously as well. And I think that's all the items. On to AB 1234. Any items to report? Councilmember Torres? AB 1234? Travel reports?
Nothing to report in terms of city travel, but just to very quickly comment on Veterans Day. You know, I did observe it in the place where I was. Ma'am, I understand the concern of being present here in the city, but I was in Austin for the weekend. I did post on social media, and I appreciate Director Sosnowski for helping me with some words to commemorate the occasion. And just also want to very quickly acknowledge that as the grandson of a proud Navy man, I hang my grandpa's destroyer in my office above my seat in my council office. And I'm a proud member of the Sons of the American Legion. I attend their events regularly and make sure to support our veterans, not just on Veterans Day, but you know, as often as I can. So I appreciate the concern there, and Madam Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Melendez?
Nothing to report.
Any shout outs to veterans? Any shout outs to veterans?
Yeah, I mean, we all observe veterans, yeah. Veterans Day.
Councilmember Peralta?
No items to report?
Any shout outs to veterans?
Absolutely.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez?
No items to report.
Any shout outs to veterans?
To all of them.
Okay, and myself, no, I didn't have any travel. My father, my youth commissioner, my deputy partner, my parks commissioner, my cousin are all on the boulevard. So, and also thank you all for who served our country. With that, before we close, if we can please, I know our Montebello Police Department utilizes the Sheriff's Department well out on their training run out of the Star Center. 75 sheriff and training cadets were on a run at 6:30 this morning. 25 of them were struck, 5 are in critical condition, 16 minor, and 4 moderate. We utilize the sheriff for homicides, air support, so if we can please keep those that were injured in our thoughts and in our prayers. And also, we did lose a pillar in the community, Mr. Philip Joseph Pace. He was 87 years old, married to Phyllis Pace. They had 3 children, Philip Jr., John, and Gina. They have 2 grandsons, Philip and Nino. He was a city treasurer for over 12 years, and he was actually the president of several service organizations, including the State Medical Board, the Metropolitan Water District, the Montebello Chamber of Commerce, the Rotary Club, the St. Benedict's Catholic Church, because he was a devout Catholic, the Italian Catholic Federation. He moved here back in 1950, and he was a huge proponent of the Heart of Compassion. So, and he's going to be missed this Saturday for their Thanksgiving giveaway. So if we can please close in memory of him. His services are this Friday. So we can please have a moment of silence for Mr. Philip Pace. Thank you. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion?
Can I have a second? I will second. And the meeting will be adjourned until December 14th at 5 o'clock. Thank you. Have a good night.